Oh my goodness, what a train wreck Sunday's Firecracker 400 turned out to be. It was essentially the clash from the season without the boring, predictable single-file parade. With the drama on the racetrack came the twists and turns known as NASCAR fantasy. Jeremy Ambrose predicted the chaos the best, putting William Byron, Jimmy Johnson, and Kurt Busch into the lineup. Points leader Skywagon had a middling 16th place finish, but retains the points lead at the halfway mark. As for myself, Brad Keselowski's poor performance really hurt my end result. There were some solid picks as the Roush Fenway drivers weren't field killers and gave me some solid points on the day. Despite those positives, an 18th place finish was the highest I could get in the standings. In addition, Rutledge Wood of all people convinced me to sign up for NBC Sports' brand new predictor game. Essentially, you are given 4 drivers for each stage and you have to choose which gladiator will place the highest. As for the final stage, you have to predict the top 3 in order, and if you are correct, you win the ultimate jackpot of $10,000. Considering my knowledge of NASCAR, I figured why not give this game a shot. I picked Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Chase Elliott for the stages, and it gave me a perfect 20 through the first 2 segments. My goodness, it looks like a huge payday is in the cards. I have 2 of the best plate racers in the mid-2010s and the most recent plate winner at Talladega. Absolutely nothing can go wrong with this lineup. Unfortunately, Brad Keselowski lifting as well as Chase Elliott and Joey Logano's misfortunes made the final outcome laughable. As a result, no money or enrichments were granted by the racing gods. Luckily, no one else predicted the correct order considering Justin Haley won the race, so that means the jackpot doubles next weekend to $20,000 at Kentucky. So on to this weekend as fantasy takes us to the horsepowers of the Kentucky Speedway. The intermediate tracks have provided some spectacular moments this season, and we will see what 400 miles brings for fantasy. If you want my advice, 2 drivers that need to be the focal point of your lineup are MTJ and Brad Keselowski. The almighty stage winner has won the last 2 races at Kentucky, including a clean sweep of Stage 1, Stage 2, and the race last July. Meanwhile, Bad Brad is also a 2-time winner in the Bluegrass State and took the victory at Kansas earlier this year. More than likely, these 2 drivers are going to dominate the race, and they will be contenders to take the checkered flag on Saturday. Other drivers you might want to consider are Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, and Kevin Harvick as long as the pit crew doesn't screw him over. I think the usual suspects will shine under the lights and maybe a few shockers squeaking into the top 10. Anyways, time to cue the music NBC plays when Ricky Stenhouse Jr. spins onto the apron.
There's a smoke show.
So as you guys know, the NASCAR Xfinity Series put on some late 4th of July fireworks over the weekend. The annual Circle K Firecracker 250 produced tons of crashes, passes for the lead, and a melon smash for the ages on the iconic Daytona start-finish line. Mixing the young blood of the regulars with experienced racers like Ross Chastain and AJ Allmendinger always makes for a red, white, and blue spectacle this time of year. Even with this event ending an era, the World Center of Racing provided a proper send-off to the July Midsummer Classic. One historic name missing from the pavement, however, was Earnhardt, as Dale Sr.'s grandson Jeffrey failed to compete after his 81 team withdrew from Daytona. Despite the streak breaking last season, the lack of the Earnhardt name at Daytona hurts considering the history Dale Sr. and Junebug carried over the past few decades. The question NASCAR's faithful have unanswered, however, is what happened to stall the hauler from going to the beaches. This occurrence not only brought up a short-term calamity, but further put Jeffrey Earnhardt's long-term future into an unknown result. Today on the channel, we're going to break down Jeffrey Earnhardt and Xtreme Concepts Racing and what is possibly going on behind the scenes. With that said, before this video starts, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for new content. With the Earnhardt legacy possibly ending, start a new one by watching every minute of content and sharing and interacting with those close NASCAR fans in your life. Now it's time to get on to the featured presentation. After floating around through the NASCAR Cup Series garage with Gaunt Brothers and Circle Sport, Jeffrey Earnhardt was longing for that prime opportunity to build his identity. He was granted that with Joe Gibbs Racing, as he would get 9 races in the team's number 18 ride. 5 of those events have been completed, with the 4th generation star finishing a season-high 3rd place at Charlotte. Other great runs included a 6th place finish at Atlanta and a 15th place effort at Daytona, in which he led 29 circuits on the day. Not only has he driven for the mothership, but he has driven for a JGR satellite team known as Xtreme Concepts Racing. This company specializes in turnkey security solutions, which owns the IK9 services you see featured on Jeffrey's 18 car, as well as select events with Brandon Jones. The team is raced at Texas and Chicagoland, with the number 81 scoring a best finish of 8th. Meanwhile, the organization also fielded the 81 in the NASCAR Cup Series, as Jeffrey Earnhardt raced to a 22nd place finish in their debut race at Talladega. Team executive and Xtreme Concepts CEO Landon Ash has vowed to race in the full NASCAR Cup schedule down the road, and running the high-paying, high-rewarding plate events are a good foundation to becoming a consistent race team. In terms of the 81 in Xfinity, the car was scheduled to race at Daytona last weekend, Bristol, as well as Throwback Weekend at the Darlington Raceway. They are scheduled to wrap up their inaugural season altogether by racing in the October Talladega race for the NASCAR Cup Series. In addition, Xtreme Concepts still has 11 races on its 2019 deal with Joe Gibbs Racing. The remainder of the deal includes 4 races with Jeffrey Earnhardt, 6 races with Brandon Jones, and a race on the 18 with Leech Kyle Busch behind the wheel at Watkins Glen. With that said, Jeffrey Earnhardt and the team obviously missed the scheduled start at Daytona, which provides concern not only for the race team but the sponsorship deal with JGR. Shortly after the announcement, some transactions on social media took place that were noteworthy to this unsolved mystery. IK9 as a company shared this tweet after the news broke, showing their support for Jeffrey and stating they will be on the track soon. This differs from recent cop-outs from Nature's Bakery, DC Solar, and Subway, as they seemingly left overnight with no tweets or public statements acknowledging their controversies. From this message, they are intending to race with Jeffrey at some point in the future. When you look at Joe Gibbs Racing, however, there is no strategic path or outcome mapped out. As the Xfinity teams are racing in Daytona, a good eye on Twitter noticed the IK9 logo was removed from the team hauler. A few hours later, however, a JGR member was seen reapplying the logo in the empty space. During that time frame, the IK9 logo on JGR's website was removed from the official partners list and hasn't reappeared since. So as the smoke clears from this controversy, there are still some questions left to be answered. Why would Joe Gibbs Racing remove the company's logo and reapply it that quick? The first scenario I came up with was that Landon Ash failed to pay the team money for its June slate of events. Most NASCAR teams have certain deadlines for payments rather than writing a seasonal multi-million-dollar check before the season begins. When you think about it, it makes sense that the New York-based company possibly forgot to pay its dues or maybe didn't have enough free money set aside for that deadline. If you're Joe Gibbs Racing, you don't want to give Xtreme Concepts or IK9 free advertising space for not paying up. With this scenario, JGR likely removed the IK9 logos from the team hauler before it left for Daytona. Ultimately, when a new payment was released on Thursday, they decided to reapply the logos to show that they are still a team sponsor. The more realistic outcome as to why Jeffrey Earnhardt missed Daytona, however, relies with Xtreme Concepts' alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing. With taking part as a satellite team, they get cars, equipment, engines, and possibly personnel to work on and operate the race team on a weekly basis. As we all know, Joe Gibbs Racing produces the fastest cars in the Xfinity garage area. Coach Joe's fleet has 7 wins on the year, with its Toyota Supras leading the most laps compared to any other organization. It should be no surprise Xtreme Concepts is on a short leash as you look at past instances such as Furniture Racing when they had a technical partnership with JGR. The team is going to demand a hefty amount of money or B2B benefits for Xtreme Concepts Racing to get these luxuries and become a competitive team in the league. Xtreme Concepts likely breached a section of the contract with JGR, and it caused some calamity going forward. As part of the technical alliance, Joe Gibbs Racing likely decided not to send pit crew members or other personnel to help work on the 81 during the weekend. Likely with no pit crew or other staff members to work on the car, the 81 was forced to withdraw and could not make the trip to Daytona. Seeing how Nature's Bakery went down, you don't want to go to court against a NASCAR team. They were forced to settle for $31 million, and the company has completely lost all of its relevance to the mainstream American. IK9 saw their mistake and they quickly corrected it with Joe Gibbs Racing, and that is why more than likely they are going to return to the racetrack in the near future. We won't find out for sure if the issue's been resolved until New Hampshire, as that's the next IK9 sponsored race for Joe Gibbs Racing. In terms of Jeffrey Earnhardt, regardless of IK9's situation, this shouldn't have too much of an impact, at least for this season. He's still under contract with Joe Gibbs Racing and will get his remainder of events regardless if the IK9 dog graces the hood and the quarter panels of the car. With that said, if they leave NASCAR, the lack of money could hurt the North Carolina driver for the 2020 season. As you guys know, I despise Joe Gibbs Racing and most of their drivers, but Jeffrey Earnhardt is a respectable driver for the organization. With his family name, he could have easily gotten a full-time ride with Junior Motorsports and eventually earn a top spot in the NASCAR Cup Series regardless of the results. Instead, he has chosen to fight his way from the lower tier cars of Go Fast in the Motorsports Group to get the opportunity at a top tier team like JGR. To many, he embodies the blue-collar mentality of moving through the ranks and doesn't let money dictate his legacy. I wouldn't mind seeing him full-time at Joe Gibbs Racing, as he could win some races and at least outperform the current driver in the 19. As much as I want to discredit it, my goodness, this is becoming more of an anti-Brandon Jones club. Don't worry, this club is always right, as Brandon Jones still hasn't done anything in that high-powered equipment. So anyways, this is NRF signing out, and just remember, life's a beach and then you drive.